understood like what his voice could do. You know what I'm saying? He would show off a little bit, but he's like, all right.
He doesn't just live life, he scores it. Every step, every glance, every breath feels timed to a rhythm only he can hear. They call him Masego, but to understand him, you need to listen closer. Because behind every polished sound, there's a story of a man who turned rhythm into revelation. He lives in rhythm, every note a reflection of motion, every move a melody, from Jamaican roots to global stages. He's not the kind of artist who shouts to be heard. He whispers in color, gold tones, velvet echoes, silk shadows, and somehow the world leans in. In an industry obsessed with noise, he built an empire out of balance, between jazz and trap, between elegance and edge, between self-discipline and self-indulgence. It's the paradox that defines him as the man who can perform for thousands, then disappear into silence for weeks. The artist who thrives in luxury, yet writes about solitude. He doesn't just live large, he lives with intention. From the narrow streets of Kingston to the shining rooftops of Los Angeles, every chapter in his story hums the same refrain. Grace, grit, growth. He is proof that luxury isn't always loud sometimes. It's a quiet confidence. Sometimes it's a perfectly timed note. So tonight, we step inside his rhythm, not to chase the music, but to understand the man behind it. Before the velvet suits, before the sold-out tours, before the world even learned his name, there was Micah Davis. A kid from Virginia with Jamaican and African American roots, raised by a single mother who prayed as much as she worked. Her faith was the rhythm of their home. The church was their stage. Every Sunday, little Micah would watch the choir sway bodies moving in time with something divine. That was his first lesson in performance. That music wasn't just art, it was worship. He didn't know it then, but those church drums were the heartbeat of the sound he'd one day create. Money was tight. Dreams weren't. He practiced on borrowed instruments, scratched reeds, and secondhand keys. He'd stay up past midnight, teaching himself songs by ear, recording on a cracked laptop balanced on an ironing board. If it looked like a studio to him, then it was one. Neighbors would knock on the walls sometimes in rhythm, sometimes in annoyance, but he never stopped, because every note felt like rebellion. Every sound was a small victory against circumstance. He didn't fit anywhere. Not really. Too jazzy for hip-hop, too trap for jazz. So he built his own lane, a place between the genres, between tradition and chaos. They laughed at first. Trap sax? They'd say, half mocking, half confused. But he just smiled, because even then, he understood what they didn't. The world hadn't caught up yet. There's an old, grainy, shaky video of him playing on a street corner saxophone case open for tips. Cars pass. Nobody stops. But he keeps playing, eyes closed, lost in a sound he believes in. That moment, unseen by millions, was the quiet birth of Masego. His mom used to say, "Micah, if you don't see the door, build it." So he did it with software, cheap microphones, and ambition. He posted clips online, unpolished, unfiltered, and somewhere, somehow, the internet listened. A year that started like any other, but ended like a prophecy. He wasn't in $1 million studio. No engineers, no label, just a cracked laptop, a loop pedal, and a feeling. He pressed the record and created Girls That Dance, a sax riff that flirted with rhythm, a beat that bent the rules. It wasn't jazz. It wasn't a trap. It was something new, something that sounded like freedom. He uploaded it to SoundCloud at 2 a.m., thinking maybe a few friends would listen. By sunrise, the track had wings. Tweets, reposts, dance clips, the internet caught fire. Within days, his DMs were flooded. Blogs were calling. Producers were asking, "Who is this kid?" It wasn't luck. It was years of pressure meeting precision the moment that everything he'd been building in silence suddenly made noise. And from that point on, Micah Davis became Masego. Not just a name, but a movement, a sound that couldn't be categorized, only felt. He called it TrapHouseJazz. The industry called it genius. That song didn't just open doors, it kicked them off the hinges. It turned a kid with borrowed instruments into a global headline, and the world, for the first time, was ready to listen. Every artist has a moment that changes everything. For Masego, that moment happened in a small Paris apartment surrounded by cables, instruments, and possibility. It wasn't planned. No label rollout. No marketing team. Just two creators, Masego and French multi-instrumentalist FKJ, chasing sound the way some people chase light. They hit records. A single camera. One continuous take. No retakes. No rehearsals. That's when Tadow was born, a track so smooth, so effortless. It felt like silk folding into sunlight. It was music that didn't demand attention, it earned it. Within hours of its release, the internet was hypnotized. Tadow didn't just trend, it transcended. Jazz lovers studied it. R&B fans replayed it. Producers tried to decode it. The world pressed replay 500 million times. And suddenly, two artists who just wanted to jam became architects of a new sound. That single Paris session turned into a global anthem, a collision of music, emotion, and modern luxury. And Masego, once the kid hustling with borrowed gear, became the face of effortless sophistication. But Tadow wasn't just a hit, it was a declaration. Masego had arrived, but he didn't come to play by the rules. He came to redefine them. From that moment, everything he touched carried the same precision structure and soul, rhythm, and restraint. His albums Lady Lady and Studying Abroad became passports to his world. Each felt like stepping into a new city where jazz met trap and romance met rebellion. Lady Lady introduced a man who didn't just sing about love, he curated it. Tracks like Queen Tings and Old Age felt like art pieces, smooth, stylish, deliberate. He didn't just perform them, he designed them. Then came Studying Abroad, proof that Masego wasn't bound by geography or genre. Part travel journal, part sonic experiment, it blended bossa nova, R&B, and African rhythm. Every track shimmered with the confidence of a man who had seen the world, yet never lost curiosity. He wasn't chasing hits, he was chasing evolution. As his sound matured, so did his circle. Collaborations with SZA, Ari Lennox, Kehlani, and Don Toliver blurred the line between underground and mainstream. But what made them powerful wasn't celebrity, it was chemistry. Each record felt handcrafted, a painting made by hand, not an algorithm. While others chased streams, Masego built experiences. From self-produced mixtapes to Grammy-nominated projects, he evolved from a YouTube secret into a global standard of luxury soul. Yet through it all, he never lost the calm confidence that defined him. Critics began calling him the architect of modern soul luxury, a man who turned the saxophone into a status symbol, whose presence felt like velvet smooth and timeless. He wasn't selling nostalgia, he was reinventing it, taking the textures of Miles Davis, the playfulness of Prince, and the swagger of Drake, weaving them into something entirely new. A genre that couldn't be boxed because it wasn't meant to be. Every live show became a statement piece. No pyrotechnics, no chaos, just precision. One light, one mic, one man controlling time with tone. And that's what separated Masego from the noise. His music didn't scream, it whispered. It pulled you in until you were part of the rhythm yourself. From Lagos to London, Tokyo to Toronto, he sold out shows not through spectacle, but sincerity. Each concert felt like a blend of therapy and celebration, a reminder that luxury isn't what you wear, it's what you feel. And behind that calm charisma, his achievements stacked quietly. Grammy nominations, Billboard recognitions, global collaborations shaping the next wave of cross-cultural sound. He was named one of the most stylish male musicians of his generation, not just for his clothes, but for the composure he wore with them. In a world obsessed with speed, Masego mastered stillness. He built a brand rooted in grace, timing, and tone. Because to him, success isn't about volume, it's about vibration. Masego isn't just an artist. He's in a mood, equal parts class, chaos, and clarity. A symbol of how creativity can coexist with luxury without losing its soul. Every project, every performance, every collaboration is another brushstroke in a masterpiece still unfolding. If you could master one art, music, style, or storytelling, which would it be? Luxury isn't something Masego wears. It's something he composes. Every detail in his life carries rhythm. Every object, a frequency. He doesn't chase opulence. He curates it. His world, from his instruments to his interiors, tells a story of tone, taste, and timing. His Los Angeles penthouse sits high above the noise, sunlight spilling across African art and velvet textures. Shelves lined with vinyls built his sound. The air hums with sandalwood and studio electricity. There are no plaques crowding the walls, no trophies cluttering corners, just peace, symmetry, and space to think. On one side, a turntable spins jazz from another era. On the other, a saxophone rests like a relic and a promise. He designed this space himself, not as a monument to fame, but as a reflection of focus. Each morning, he walks barefoot to the balcony, watching the city wake beneath him, whispering his mantra. Stillness creates sound. It's not a quote he read, it's how he lives. Then there's Jamaica, his second home, his spiritual reset, a villa perched between sea and hills, where glass meets bamboo and marble meets breeze. It's where he disappears to let melodies find him instead of chasing them. Here, he isn't Masego the artist. He's Micah barefoot, smiling, recording outside because he likes how the wind sounds on the mic. Jamaica reminds him of his mother's prayers. Simple, grounding, and unbothered by the world's noise. And then there's Paris, not the postcard version, but the hidden one. A loft near Montmartre, where he records by candlelight, surrounded by wine, vintage gear, and half-written lyrics on napkins. To him, that's luxury, not extravagance, but access. Access to quiet, to time, to inspiration. He could record anywhere, but he chose a studio with cracked floors, high ceilings, and a sliver of the Eiffel Tower in view. Because when he plays, he likes to see the light moving rhythm made visible. He once said, "Luxury is when you can hear yourself think." And that's why his homes aren't just beautiful, they're balanced. Everywhere he lives, there's harmony between past and present, culture and class. The boy from Virginia and the man now headlining global festivals. Even his cars tell stories. The Range Rover, quiet, understated. His daily drive through LA, Miles Davis, whispering through the speakers. The vintage Mercedes coupe is his soul car, creaking leather, crackling radio, pure vibe. The Tesla Plaid is sleek, silent, futuristic, like the way he moves. Efficient, elegant, electric. He doesn't collect cars, he collects moods. Each one mirrors a version of himself, the calm, the classic, the curious. But his greatest luxury isn't parked in a garage. It's hanging in his closet. Bold prints, silk shirts, tailored linen, gold chains that glint like punctuation marks in his sentences. He calls it bohemian royalty, a fusion of Africa, the Caribbean, and the city in one effortless harmony. He doesn't dress to impress, he dresses to express. To him, clothes are compositions, each fabric a note, each accessory a beat. He once said, "I wear rhythm the way a tailor wears thread seamlessly." That's why fashion houses chase him, not because he's a mannequin, but because he's a muse. Gucci for romance, Fendi for structure, Loewe for poetry, but he never wears logos for attention. He wears craftsmanship for connection. He studies texture like producers study tone, how fabric breathes, how color moves under light. Every outfit is a mood board, every photo, a performance. For Masego, presentation is part of the music. The way you carry yourself changes how people hear your art. It's not vanity, it's vibration. In a world that celebrates excess, he's found rhythm in restraint. His home isn't crowded with designer clutter. His jewelry isn't loud. Everything he owns has meaning, and everything with meaning has purpose. That's why his luxury doesn't feel distant. It feels lived in. When he's not performing, you'll find him barefoot in the kitchen, blending green juice, humming melodies over the blender. He likes soft morning incense and jazz before breakfast. His luxury isn't chaos, it's clear. Every space he touches becomes a sanctuary, not because of what's in it, but because of what he leaves out. He calls it sound design for the soul. Spaces where silence feels expensive, and every echo has intention. Sometimes he hosts private jam sessions with friends, musicians, bottles of wine, and no cameras. They play until sunrise. Someone starts on keys, another joins with percussion. Masego flows between sax and voice. Art without agenda, the kind you can't stream, buy, or brand. That's his version of luxury, not status, but state of mind. Luxury means having the time to create slowly, to travel without an itinerary, to live like music free, intentional, timeless. When he walks through airports in silk and sunglasses, he's not flaunting. He's a flowing man who knows who he is and how he wants to feel. That's his greatest flex, emotional precision. Masego isn't selling the dream of wealth. He's living the discipline of taste, the quiet power of restraint, the art of owning things that don't own you. He's proof that when creativity meets clarity, you don't just make music, you create movement. Because real luxury isn't the watch on your wrist or the car in your drive. It's the rhythm you live by when no one's watching. So when people ask what success feels like, he smiles and says, "Success is a room with sunlight and silence." And in that single sentence, he defines everything he's become. A man who turned simplicity into status and style into sound. Behind the gold saxophones and global tours, Masego lives quietly, intentionally. His private life is his most guarded melody, one he rarely lets the public hear. He once said, "Fame is loud, but peace is the real luxury." And in that quiet, he's built a rhythm that keeps him centered. At home, he's not the artist on stage. He's just Micah, the man who journals every morning, writes affirmations on sticky notes, and makes tea before sunrise. His penthouse becomes a sanctuary, a place where music breathes, not performs. When it comes to love, he keeps it low-key. Rumors drift, whispers float, but Masego never confirms, never claps back. He believes privacy isn't secrecy, it's protection. During an interview, he once smiled and said, "Love is like jazz. You can't script it, you just feel it." For him, love isn't a headline, it's a frequency. He values depth over display, energy over exposure. His relationships reflect his art, fluid, emotional, unforced. Sometimes he'll write a song that sounds like a confession. Sometimes it's just a moment he lived and let go. Fans hear tenderness and heartbreak, but the names stay hidden in rhythm. When he's not making music, he's creating peace in other forms. Cooking, photography, and meditation. Different ways he composes calm. Whether stirring a pot of Caribbean fusion barefoot with red wine nearby, or capturing unguarded portraits of friends, he treats each act as deliberate, soulful, unrehearsed. One shelf in his studio is lined with journals, gratitude lists, sketches, unfinished verses. A single page reads, "Protect the vibe." That's his mantra, his compass. Whether on tour or at home, he guards his energy like treasure. It's not ego, it's discipline. On quiet nights, he dims the lights, burns a candle, and lets the sax rest beside him. Sometimes he hums melodies he'll never record. Sometimes he just sits in silence, watching the city glow beneath him. His friends call him the vibe curator. His inner circle artists like FKJ, Smino, and Anderson.Pack are more than collaborators. They're brothers in art. Together, they chase authenticity over attention. Their bond isn't built on charts or numbers. It's built on creative respect, jam sessions, and laughter that lasts till sunrise. Masego values these friendships because they remind him of who he was before the lights. In a world obsessed with fame, His tribe keeps him grounded. His spirituality runs deep, not in religion, but in ritual. He meditates daily, often on the same balcony where he once dreamed of making it. Gratitude is his language, thanking the unseen forces, the ancestors who whispered rhythm into his DNA. That's where his music begins, in stillness, in surrender. Every note, every beat, every lyric flows from that space of clarity. He believes that when your soul is aligned, the art follows naturally. For Masego, success without peace is failure in disguise. So he moves through life like a song flowing, unpredictable, but always in tune. Some nights, he'll post a cryptic line online, something poetic fans try to decode. But those who know him understand. It's not mystery, it's mindfulness. He keeps just enough distance to stay free, enough silence to stay sane, enough gratitude to stay grounded. From the outside, it looks like solitude, but to him, it's connection with self, with sound, with spirit. Because when the cameras fade and the noise quiets, that's where Masego truly exists. In the pause between beats, in the silence after applause. He's not chasing the next viral moment. He's building something rarer, a life that feels like music. Even when the lights fade, his purpose stays lit, turning melody into message. If stories like this inspire you, like and subscribe to The Black Empire Files, where rhythm meets royalty, and every story turns sound into legacy. Legacy, for Masego, isn't about applause. It's about alignment. It's about what you leave behind when the sound fades and the lights go out. He's proof that luxury and purpose don't have to live in separate rooms. In a world chasing trends, he's quietly building foundations. He funds music programs for young Black musicians, not just to create the next superstar, but to nurture self-expression. Every year, through small grants and quiet donations, he places instruments in the hands of dreamers. For Masego, that's where real legacy begins, when someone else finds their voice because you protected your own. He remembers what it felt like to borrow instruments, to make beats on cracked software, to dream from a one-room apartment. Now, he pays it forward anonymously, humbly. He doesn't post every act of kindness. He lets the impact speak. He funds workshops where kids learn not just how to play, but how to own. Because Masego believes every artist deserves more than applause. They deserve ownership. He says it often, calm but firm. Don't just sign your art away. Own your masters. Own your freedom. In an industry built on exploitation, he stands as a quiet revolutionary, not by shouting, but by educating. He speaks about creative independence the way others speak about fame. Because to him, wealth isn't measured in followers, or fame, it's measured in freedom. He tells young artists, you can't call it art if you don't call it yours. That's his movement empowerment wrapped in elegance. And when it comes to mental health, he's unfiltered. He talks about burnout, doubt, and the silent battles artists face when the applause stops. He once said, we don't just lose ourselves to fame. We lose ourselves to pretending we're fine. That honesty has become part of his brand. Not the glamorized kind of vulnerability, but the raw kind that makes others feel seen. He encourages artists to take breaks, to breathe, to live beyond the grind. Because for him, balance is the truest form of success. Masego uses his platform not for politics, but for people. He's a connector bridging sounds, stories, and souls across continents. From Kingston to Cape Town, from Atlanta to Amsterdam, his music carries a message that Black art is borderless and culture is currency. He dreams of building a global art collective, a movement uniting African, Caribbean, and Western creators under one roof, a house of rhythm, a sanctuary for the soul. He calls it the diaspora in stereo, a vision where painters, poets, producers, and performers coexist, sharing stories, creating freely, celebrating roots. It's not just philanthropy, it's evolution. He wants to turn creativity into a language that transcends geography. That's Masego's true activism, not protest in the streets, but harmony across worlds. He's teaching that influence can be gentle, and legacy can sound like collaboration, not competition. For him, giving back isn't charity, it's style. He once told GQ, "Luxury isn't about what you have, it's about what you give back in style. It's not about showing wealth, but sharing wisdom. Not about wearing success, but weaving it into something that lasts." You see it in his actions, every mentorship session, every school visit, every late-night studio conversation with upcoming artists. He doesn't just talk about legacy, he lives it. And maybe that's what separates him from so many others. For Masego, the ultimate flex isn't fame, it's foundation. The ability to say, "I built something that outlives me." He's turning inspiration into infrastructure, melody into movement. When he steps off stage, his legacy doesn't rest. It reverberates. Every sax riff, every lyric, every kid who dares to dream louder because of him, that's his encore. He's not chasing immortality, he's curating impact. And as the music fades, what remains isn't just applause, it's alignment. Because Masego's story isn't about fame, it's about meaning made, about sound becoming purpose, about a man who proved that the greatest luxury of all is legacy with soul. He didn't chase fame, he composed it. Every mansion, every melody, every moment was a note in a larger masterpiece. Masego turned life into a symphony, not loud, but layered. Every chapter a rhythm, every risk a riff, every success a sound that felt earned. Where others saw luxury as a rival, he saw it as an expression. To him, elegance was never about excess. It was about intention. Every tailored suit, every golden sax, every pause between notes whispered the same truth. Luxury, when done right, should sound like art. He blended class with culture, turning modern jazz into modern identity, a reminder that style without soul is just noise, but soul refined becomes timeless. From humble beginnings to high ceilings, Masego didn't just rise, he redefined what rising could look like. He built bridges between genres, generations, and geographies, and made it look effortless. Because he understood something rare. You don't follow trends when you were born to set tempo. He's proof that a modern artist can be both visionary and vulnerable, grounded and grand. That the truest form of luxury isn't found in the spotlight, but in the shadows where creation begins. This is Masego, the man who turned rhythm into royalty, who made elegance emotional and creativity a lifestyle. And as the final note fades, his story leaves us with one question. Is Masego the new face of creative luxury, or the reminder that real wealth is rhythm? Because in his world, art isn't an accessory, it's the crown itself. Even when the lights fade, his purpose stays, lightening melody into message. If stories like this inspire you, like and subscribe to The Black Empire Files, where rhythm meets royalty, and every story turns sound into legacy.